Welcome to Berlin, Germany, home of the European LCS. The 2018 season starts today as the defending champions look to protect their crown from the would-be Kingslayers that are surrounding from all directions. First Blood is just minutes away as more fresh blood takes to the stage than ever before, taking their first steps towards the European throne.
And they are not alone. Here in the ULCS studios, some of Europe's most passionate fans have gathered to cheer and support their favorite teams on opening day.
There's not much left to say. The stage is set, the players are pumped, and we are ready. It is time to find out who will rise again. This is the EULCS.
Aren't you been waiting and waiting all game long for this one team fight? They got full items on their carries and they run straight at Fnatic.
Nothing Fnatic can do, and the last Fnatic member falls.
När vi torskade mot RNG på Worlds så kändes det som allt jag hade jobbat för och byggt upp var bortkastat.
مرحبا يا LCS Spanish تبصري شيء كل مرة باين كتير.
Victory was always in sight, but we could never reach it.
Grant has led his team to victory. The Nexus is the focus, and this is the G2 dynasty.
Ja sam jedini preostali igrač iz prijašnje postave. Morali smo se staviti potpuno novi tim, ali sam uvjeren da sam odabrao igrače s kojima opet mogu dostići vrh.
Idén úgy döntöttem, hogy csapatot váltok és a sárga színeiben fogom folytatni. Az általuk nyújtott szolid csapatstruktúrával, jó háttérstábbal és erős csapattársakkal sikerülni fog a bajnokság megnyerés.
In the beginning, they all doubted us. They were all wrong.
Mina goes down. Misfits are going to pick up Baron unless Faker hits the shot.
Misfits are playing the game of their lives right now.
Dessa känslor är inte bara min svagaste sida, utan även min starkaste. Jag kommer aldrig ge upp.
We achieved our goals, but it was not enough. Now, we're back to win it all.
And for the first time in history, the fourth consecutive EU LCS title, G2 Esports.
Misfits the underdogs in this game. No one expected anything but they hit hard.
Jankos, the first blood king! Let's make it a clean fight!
Hello everyone, I'm Sjokz supporter here with Martin Deficio Lunga, ready for 12 weeks action-packed in the EULCS Spring Split. How hyped are you right now?
I'm at the top. You know, off-season is way too long. I just want the EULCS to start again. But before we get into the games here, Sjokz, we do have to tell you guys about some of the changes here to the EULCS, and we're starting with the format.
Yeah, definitely. So no longer two groups. All teams are now in one group playing best of ones, 5 games a day, and each team plays twice a week on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, and on Friday we start at 6 p.m. So right now for everyone watching live at home, and of course tomorrow, Saturday, we start at 5 p.m. So 1 hour difference between the days.
Yeah, so adjust your schedules for that. But now let's take a look at the schedule for our first day of action, where we kick things off with a rematch of last split's finals between G2 Esports and Misfits Gaming.
Big game we're starting with, of course, and Fnatic Splice later as well. Another huge match we have. But when we have the schedule here on the screen, you guys will also notice Giants and Schalke are suddenly here in the EULCS. They have requalified. They went through the promotion tournament. After they qualified, though, they completely rebuilt the rosters. The Schalke lineup is the one I want to talk about because there's some big names on this team here. Visichachi, Nuke Duck, the rookie upset. Like, that's a bunch of carries here who can actually make this team fight for number one.
And a lot of pressure on their shoulders. Everybody is expecting a lot from that roster, but it's not just Schalke and Giants that have changed. The whole of Europe is rebuilding as we have 36 roster changes from summer 2017, which is the most in EULCS history. And I have to say, it does kind of feel like a fresh start.
I mean, it very much is a fresh start with every single roster making a big change. And we are used to these roster changes in Europe, but this many is still kind of crazy, and it makes it very hard to predict who's actually the best.
One of the most thrilling things about that is that we have 9 new rookies: Sheriff, Kadril, Targamas, Ruin, Jizuke, Mini Trupax, Jacktroll, Norskaren, and Upset. And a lot of these names are just, well, a lot of people are very excited to see what they can bring to the Rift. There's some in particular.
I mean, I love the AD carry pool here. You have Upset, we already talked about him, Mini Trupax, and then Sheriff. Big names. They will for sure make a splash in the EULCS, and it is a tradition we get a lot of new rookies. But when you get a lot of new rookies, it also means you do have to say goodbye to some older names, and players like Ignar and Power of Evil, they left Misfits Gaming. And G2 Esports, the best team in Europe the last 2 years, have lost 4 members.
That is a huge change. Our reigning champions, all that's really left is PerkZ, but he did get some really big names around him. He has Wunder, Jankos, that bottom lane of Hjärnan and Wadid. So it is looking promising, but the question is, Deficio, will they just roll over the EULCS again like G2 has done 4 splits in a row?
I'm going to say no. They're not just going to roll over everyone. I think there's a lot of top teams now that can compete for that first place. And again, the fact you can't really predict who's going to win just makes it even more exciting.
A lot of anticipation, and we'll get to see G2 and all the other teams on stage today. Be sure to stick around also after the last game for the first EULCS post-game lobby of the year, where we're going to look back on all of the opening games. For now, though, we are starting off with a match between G2 and Misfits. They had a big showdown in Paris last year, with Misfits suffering a tough loss. Now, they're ready to take their revenge. The summer finals in Paris, we had G2 versus Misfits. It was going to be a fantastic, fantastic game, super hyped up. But when it came to it, Misfits seemed like they weren't even on the stage, and G2 crushed them.
Not enough frontline and not enough chances. The undisputed best team in Europe, and this is the G2 dynasty.
This is what we ended the EULCS playoffs off in Paris in front of 10,000 people, and we get the rematch with completely revamped rosters. I'm incredibly excited.
G2 were the kings of Europe. Undisputably, undoubtedly, the kings of Europe. 4 splits in a row, never been done before. But when 4 kings abdicate their thrones, do you really have a kingdom anymore?
As I see it right now, I think this team can go farther than the last G2 team could. In the long run, I'm looking for very high goals with this team, and I think all of the players on this team have potential to be the best, not only in Europe, but like potential in the world, you know.
I want to win. That's all that matters. What was in the past is in the past, you know. 4-time like championship title in Europe, it doesn't matter for me because I was not on the team, you know. But now I create new G2, you know, and we'll just try our best as a new team.
The last time these 2 teams met, it was a one-sided stomp.
G2 take it down. Misfits now falling, now getting crushed.
G2 absolutely dominated Misfits. Misfits looked like a bottom of the table team. They didn't look like title contenders.
Last year, like, Misfits was such a discount of G2, like in every single way.
Since then, they've shown up. You know, they went to Worlds, they challenged SKT. They have shown that they are a dominant powerhouse in Europe. But the question is, can they translate international success onto a domestic stage?
It's not about proving ourselves in the ULCS, it's just about dominating in every aspect of the game, just winning every single game we play, showing that even though we lost in a pretty bad way, we can come back and be stronger. It's gotten a lot better. At the start we were still trying to mesh into how we communicate and how we play, but now it's a lot more clean, a lot smoother. If we lose now, it's not because we're disorientated, it's more we lose as a team, whereas in the scrims before we lost because we just weren't synced.
I think the loss of Sven Mitty will hurt G2 a lot. I'm not sure if they can stay the kings of Europe.
It doesn't matter who beats who in lane. It doesn't matter who has more CS at the 20-minute mark. What matters is who stamps their authority, on the EU LCS.
Every time I watch that, man, it gets me so hyped. Stamps their authority. Let's get it going. I'm Daniel Drakos, following the first game of the EU LCS in 2018, along with my comrade, Andrew Vedius Day. You seem very controlled right now.
I'm very controlled, but I'm also insanely riveted. I'm excited. I'm everything that you can think of because the EU LCS is back, and we're ready for some kick-ass games.
Got the rematch of the finals coming up, so let's take a look at the rosters, at the teams coming onto the Rift. First up, it's the current EU LCS champions, G2 Esports. In the top lane, it is Wunder, jungle, Jankos, mid lane, PerkZ, AD carry, Hjärnan, and their support, Wadid.
Meanwhile, facing them on the red side, this game... it is the 2017 World Championship quarterfinalist Misfits Gaming. Their top laner Alphari, in the jungle Maxlore, new mid laner Sencux, AD carry Hansama, alongside new mid support Mikyx, and their coach Hussein Musfi.
And there's so much that excites me about both of these rosters. Sencux and Mikyx no longer on Splice, Wunder no longer on Splice, but on the opposite side. But I think when you look at this team, when you look at both of these teams, you got to talk about PerkZ. You got to talk about Jankos together.
That's what everyone's hyped for.
We've seen them flame each other on the analyst desk. I want to see how they play together, man.
Remember when PerkZ initially came onto the scene alongside Trick? They were this powerhouse duo that everyone was excited for because Trick was always invading, getting in your face, this early playmaking jungler, and he was complemented by this playmaking mid laner in PerkZ. Now we get to see a similar style of that with Jankos, this highly early game dominant jungler that likes to get early leads. He likes to play around these early objectives, and he's paired alongside who many consider the best mid laner in Europe. And how can you not look forward to seeing how this duo will match up? People are just expecting automatic synergy right from the get-go.
And it's a similar story on the opposite side for Misfits. How are Sencux and Maxlore going to mesh? What is the meta going to show us too? Because we've seen a lot of LPL, we've seen a lot of LCK over the last few days. Is this going to be a meta where Jankos can be classic First Blood King, where he can bust out those early game champions? Or is he going to have to play back a little bit, play a little safer in the early game?
That's one of the big questions, but I feel like when you look at Jankos, he's always going to try and go for those early game champions. Things like Kha'Zix, things like Jarvan, Lee Sin, all still very prevalent in the meta, and depending on what gets banned away, could raise those champions in priority. Hey, in Paris, we even saw him bring out the Kayn in Game 5. This guy, he does know how to play those kind of champions.
I mean, you're literally just buttering me up by saying the word Kayn. I know it's probably not going to happen, but I'm holding out hope. I want to see what they're going to bring to the table. Opposite side, though, Maxlore feels a little bit more like a team leader, a little bit less about the early game, a little more about kind of structured leadership. I feel like we may still see the same slower, macro kind of focused Misfits that we saw last season.
One would expect as much. And the thing is, Maxlore really earned a reputation for himself after Misfits' fantastic Worlds performance. They were able to shut down one of the big favorites of TSM in the group stages. They took SKT to all 5 games. And a lot of the fans put that down to Maxlore's leadership, his early pathing, the way he was so calm and calculated about the game. But one of the things he was very proud of was his synergy with Power of Evil. And we talked about the mid-jungle synergy earlier on. Now he's with Sencux. Yes, there are question marks, but Sencux is a big question mark in his own right because Power of Evil was one of the big playmakers for Misfits. He used to pick things like LeBlanc. He had those innovative builds on Orianna. And how will Sencux fill that role? Will he try to, or will this become a new Misfits entirely?
I want to see what shade of Sencux we see, because we've seen him be pretty good in a lot of different metas, and we've also seen him be not really a big factor on Splice as well. What shade of Sencux are we going to see today? What kind of performance is he going to bring for us? And we've seen a lot of Azir, we've seen a lot of Ryze, we've seen a lot of Malzahar. That's a Sencux champion. Don't know if it'll make it through picks and bans, but it doesn't seem like this is the worst meta for him to come into a new team on.
Well, we're going to find out how the meta plays out as Drakos. It is the first champion select of the 2018 European LCS.
Analysts out there are so excited. This is the first thing you want to see. You want to see if the European meta is different or if it's going to look just like the LCK. Shen ban coming in early, Ezreal to follow, a lot of high priority AD carries getting banned away in LPL and LCK right now.
Yeah, Ezreal Kleptomancy has been obnoxious in both solo queue and the highest level of competitive League of Legends. Misfits don't want to have to deal with that. A few generic bans in the form of Shen has the flexibility in both top lane and support, along with Malzahar, one of the big 4 mid laners alongside Zoe that Misfits is going to take off the board.
Other things to keep your eye on, Kalista has been a very lethal pick. Kog'Maw as well, 2 of the strongest carries in the game right now, but Azir's actually going to be taken off the board. Ryze, another big carry left open open, and
Exactly.
G2 can go for the first pick.
This is very exciting because I was just talking about the 4 big mid laners that we're seeing at top levels. 3 of them are now banned away. Ryze is the last one left, which means that we're going to see some of these interesting picks, and we know that Sencux has a very deep champion pool and is willing to bring all
But
kinds of
PerkZ,
crazy
come on,
stuff.
baby. The PerkZ Ryze, game 1. This is what it's all about. Misfits, though, can pick up the Kog'Maw for themselves, instead opting for the Xayah. Hansama absolutely clutch on this champion. Looks like Hansama and Mikyx want to prove that they've got that bot lane synergy already. Xayah and Rakan locked in.
Mikyx has been known to be a big playmaker back when he first came onto the scene. Champions like Bard, last split, or earlier in the year, he was bringing out things like the Camille. These sort of champions fit his style, and I'm very excited to see how the duo do well together.
Really want to see what he's going to go for here, too. A lot of different options for runes. Haven't always seen the most Rakan recently. Tahm Kench, though, definitely has been a staple of Korean League of Legends thus far, as well as Chinese League of Legends in the LPL. So now that it's locked in, we can see what Wadid is going to be bringing out.
Now we're looking at things like junglers or maybe even AD carries for G2. Yes, they've got their support locked in. There's still a wealth of ADs left available, but perhaps they want to put priority on the Sejuani or the Jarvan.
I forgot about Sejuani.
Yeah, both consistently banned in... Ooh, wow, and this is a very big change-up. Going for the Galio. Yet to see this in professional play across the world.
All right, I want to take you back. Early days of Hjärnan Wadid, when Roccat was winning games with them, they did it. Xayah, Rakan, Galio, every time. Now it's being played up against them in this first match. I want to see how they deal with this because this is a wombo combo. But on the other side, G2, they have all of the high priority picks we've seen in the LCK, so much map mobility, and now as we hit the second ban phase, Misfits just want to limit that AD carry pool.
Exactly that. I think you made an excellent statement there, Drakos. This would be an LCK dream draft. So many powerful picks, and Misfits, they're going for what seems to be comfort right now. Xayah, big pick for Hansama. Galio was actually one of Sencux's better performing mid laners. His ability to play towards the side lanes rather than dominate the mid lane itself, but that's depending on if it actually goes into the mid lane. Now we're looking at a lot of AD carry bans from Misfits to pinch that role, whereas for G2, they're likely going to take away things like the Jarvan and the Kha'Zix and see what else Maxlore has left in the back.
Okay, Ziggs banned away. A lot of respect over the Hjärnan Ziggs there. This must be something that they have seen in scrims, not something we've seen as much internationally. Kha'Zix also going to be taken off the table. Hyper carry jungler can have an early impact, can farm up and still be a lethal threat as you move later into the game.
Now we have seen a bit of Zac in professional play, and I wonder if this is something that Maxlore wants to go for, because Galio is great at following up on engages, but he's not necessarily the best initiator, and right now alongside a Rakan, something like a jungle engage would be very valuable.
Well, now they do want that engage even more because Vladimir, once again, not the greatest champion at starting fights, but if you can get people grouped up, the Hemo Plague does so much work. So Misfits definitely have the damage, definitely have the follow-up. They just need someone to kick off the party. Is Rakan going to be enough? Is a question we're going to have to ask ourselves as we move further, but G2 get to round out the rest of their composition. Cho'Gath, we have heard pretty solid performances in scrims, so not surprised to see it picked up.
Been talking to a lot of pros, and many consider both Ornn, Maokai, and Cho all very decent, just tanky top laners that are relatively safe. Likely going to stack a lot of magic resistance to try and deal with this Vladimir, and it should match in terms of the clear. So Wunder moving away from what we've seen in terms of carry potential top lane, and he's just going to fill the role of a tank.
Now Varus, the last lock-in, hovered the Kog'Maw. We have seen that be the more considered stable meta pick, instead opting for something a little bit stronger in the early game, can go toe-to-toe with the Xayah. Maxlore gets his pick of the litter for remaining junglers. Of course, a decent amount banned away, but if you want early playmaking, if you want engage to back up Rakan, Lee Sin can do it. Doesn't always scale as well into the late game like Sejuani, but can have a big impact, and it is locked in.
So Misfits, their engage is very much reliant on the Mikyx Rakan. It is a decent engage, very quick, very fast. However, when you look at the front line that both these teams have, G2 is going to be very difficult to get through this. A Cho'Gath, Sejuani, Tahm, Kench. And you have to deal with the fact that Ryze is going to be building a lot of shields, and the overheal build that we're expecting on Hjärnan. I feel like this team fight composition from G2 is very strong. However, the laning phase from Misfits, especially in the top and the bot lane, are avenues with which they can build these early leads, especially with Maxlore on a Lee Sin.
We're going to find out, but as we pulled away, Smite was up there for Vladimir. That might be a Summoner's Spellbook, top Vladimir with Smite. We will keep you updated. A lot of innovation coming in here for the Misfits lineup, breaking the trend of what we've seen in other regions thus far. But G2 with some standard meta powerhouse picks.
Oh, Drakos, we use the word a lot, but I am nothing but excited right now. We have waited so long to see competitive League of Legends return to Europe, and we've got two of the best teams from last split going up against each other once more. You can't ask for a better way to start off.
Once again, rematch of the finals. Best of one, do or die, everything on the line for these guys in their first game. You don't get a second chance. It is not a best of three. You have to come in swinging right off the bat.
The G2 mascot is here, getting the crowd excited. This is where the battle for the crown begins.
Ladies and gentlemen, Misfits Gaming versus G2 Esports taking to the Rift, the first game of EULCS 2018. And we're doing it old school Western style. Never mind, we're in game, yes! Never mind, we're paused again! It's an emotional roller coaster already. What more can you ask for, folks?
Oh, very quick pause. We will get an update for you as soon as we can.
Just gives us a bug splat, so see guys, it's just like solo queue. His hand warmers apparently keen on the camera. All right, we're working on it. Maxlore's figuring stuff out. You can see.
We've got an opportunity now to run through. You can see the champions behind the respective players. Some of the new awesome graphics that we do have in the studio now. But let's talk about this. Sencux on the Galio is the one that I'm pretty interested in, because when we came into this, we were like, what is Sencux going to be playing like? Is he going to try and fill the role that Power of Evil did? High damage dealer, big playmaker? Or is he going to go to something, a style that we saw worked for Sencux, which is very much play towards the side lanes, be a big roamer. Don't try and carry from the mid lane himself, but try to carry the other sides.
We are now getting into game. Unpaused, getting ready. You're going to see it on your screen in just a second as the teams kick off their level ones. But I like what you bring up. What role would Sencux play? Right now, utility. Has a safe laning phase. But then the question is, who's going to bring the damage? Who's going to be that carry? I see a Vladimir top lane. Is this the year for Alphari, Vedius? Is this the year where Alphari just gets to pop off, just gets to play these carry-style top laners to help Misfits bring home the win?
Now, to give a bit of context for people, back in the Challenger Series when Alphari debuted, he played all sorts of carry top laners. He dominated in the Challenger Series. He joined at the beginning of 2017, and he was one of the best performing top laners of Spring. For a while then, he played a lot of tanks, and his summer split performance was not that strong. But now in a meta where we're seeing a lot more carries in the top lane, there was a lot of debate around, could this be the meta once again for Alphari? And now he's playing the Vlad. By going for the Smite, we're likely going to be seeing the Unsealed Spellbook rune. It allows you to change up what kind of summoner spells that you have as you progress later into the game. And I'm curious as to what kind of strategy he's going to use to take advantage of this. Because it seems that for now, Misfits, they're going for an early red start in their half of the map.
Very classic, of course, not going to get a leash from the side of Cho'Gath, but that does mean Wunder will have a little bit of lane priority here. Happy to push in early on. Not a lane that we expect to be very bloody. Both of these guys just going to push each other back and forth, scale up, get a few items under their belts. In the meantime, Sencux pushes in mid, and really feels like we got to keep our eyes on the jungler in the early game. You brought up Maxlore. Feels like he's now pressured into making some early plays. He does not have the better scaling champion. He needs to do something with this Lee Sin early on, and he is set up right now to go to the bottom side of the map where you have a Xayah and Rakan duo.
Very much agree. He has quite a lot of options. There's a lot of engage from both Mikyx and Hansa, and we know how potent this duel was last year. It's still a very strong 2 versus 2, especially when you look at a Varus Tahm Kench lane, which shouldn't have that much power, as we already see in
going in, leaping right out. Doesn't want to get devoured there, so will pull back in the trade, but Wadid is going to burn the Ignite. So as long as Mikyx can heal up, that will be advantage to the Misfits side of the map. I like that Mickey's already getting aggressive. That's kind of the thing we were wondering about too. Was he going to find a way to be aggressive in this lane? Because Hansama has been a more passive AD carry in the past. It's like Mickey's not going to accept that as a standard. As he goes in once again, he may just hop right back out.
Just trying to throw a bit of poke down during the laning phase, assert that dominance that we were talking about. We also need to keep our eyes on the pathing of the junglers. You can see Maxlore now cleared both red and blue, working on the Gromp, working towards that level 4 point. But both junglers matching either side. Jankos now heading back towards the bot side, anticipating a potential bot lane early gank. So Jankos trying to path in a way that allows him to prepare for any early shenanigans.
Yeah, Maxwell going to pick up the Scuttle Crab. We'll have a bit of the edge here in farm, although a bit more gold over to Jankos rather, as he does manage to get the Prugs. We'll start to invade now, trying to get a little bit more information, a little bit more vision down. It's important that we talk about this matchup. These guys are kind of expected to be two huge candidates in the fight for who's going to be the best, but PerkZ not going to have any of that. Not worried about the gank. Nice sidestep on the taunt. Is able to just walk it off.
Yeah, I mean, you talk to Maxlore, and he is a very confident individual. He believes that right now, a lot of the European junglers can't compete with some of the international junglers that he went up against at Worlds, and he feels that over the next year, his goal is to reach up there. His goal is to climb, and being the best in Europe should just be a piece of cake for him. And when you look at Jankos, statistically, he is just one of the best junglers. He has been for a while, and that's where you look at these two and you think, these two are definitely going to be the two big contenders early on that are fighting for that spot.
See if anyone else rises as we get further into the split, but for now, all eyes on Maxlore and Jankos. And of course, still that passive early game. Jankos is moving into the jungle. If he can get vision down on Maxlore, he'll do an even better job just denying any early aggression. So proactive jungle pathing is definitely paying off on top of some nice sidesteps from PerkZ in the mid lane. All in on the bottom side. Ignite now burned onto Wadid. Mikyx is looking for the all-in. Has to burn the thick skin. Goes incredibly low. Gets the pots back from the inspiration tree, so might be okay.
We've also got to talk about the fact that it looks like Hansama is running press the attack, and this is very different from what we typically see from many AD carries across the world, because it's all about that overheal build. You can see it on the side of Hjärnan and Wadid, running the double relic shield, which gives you a lot of sustain, but also it gives you a lot of shielding in lane. It's very safe, it's very defensive. Whereas Hansama, Doran's Blade start. All about trying to snowball that early game, and with press the attack that gives you all that extra damage, it just really amplifies that all-in power.
And no Hourglass either. No biscuits in the inventory, so we know he's stayed away from the inspiration tree, so going all out aggressive to try to bring this home. You can now see the keystones on your screen as they are brought up. You can see Unsealed Spellbook, important one to note. But overall, very aggressive, very different AD carry build coming in from Hansama. Hjärnan and Wadid kind of keeping it standard, keeping us in the meta. The Spellbook on Tahm Kench, a little different. Maxlore going to try to find entry here. Jankos trading back evenly, though. Not going to find the stun in the end. However, Maxlore using the early game advantage and the pressure from Sencux to start invading.
I also want to take this opportunity as we're talking about all the changes in runes and item builds. Note the early Spell Thief's Edge onto Alphari. You might think this is a little odd for a manaless champion to be building what seems to be a mana helpful item. Largely, it's you want to upgrade it because of the advantages that you get from it. It's very effective at generating gold because you harass with the Q and the E in lane. You get a bit of extra gold every time you hit your opponent. But also, once you complete the quest, you get an insane movement speed buff that really helps you stick to target.
I think he's still going aggressive. Wadid's going to pop the thick skin. That means he's going to be incredibly low. One Q, one Sonic Wave connects from Maxlore. It will be first blood. Leaping forward, trying to secure it. Galio's on the way in to back up the play, but nothing's going to land. Wadid should be taken down. A nice body block from Jankos. Those keeping alive. First blood comes in as Sencux. He's just trapped in no man's land. G2 are going to fire back.
Love the play from Misfits to try and invest into the bottom lane. This is what we wanted to see in Champions Select. The setup was perfect, what did was low, but the execution was not quite on the ball. Sencux utilizing that Galio to move towards the bot side, take advantage of his level 6 mark, try and get this early lead, but fortunately for G2, Jankos was around and PerkZ was very quick to teleport. So we can see here, Wadid, he takes a pretty bad trade. He's too far up in the lane, gets chunked out, now he's super low. Perfect setup for Misfits. Now, keep your eyes as well on the minimap because you can see Jankos coming in from the side. Maxlore, he misses everything. Isn't able to get the execution. Sencux has to overcommit and can't change his target. The rest of Misfits are forced away from the tower because of the aggro, and now Sencux is left for dead as PerkZ TPs in and cleans
And not clear if that Sonic Wave was a misclick or if trying to catch Hjärnan juking to take out the Varus instead, but either way, not connecting. Massive misstep there.
I mean, let's not sugarcoat. That was awful from Maxlore, right? I understand he used the ward to close the gap, and then he initiates with the E to get the slow. Then his Q went completely the opposite direction. Not what you want to be seeing on your first day return, especially with the hype that is surrounding him. But again, more aggression down in the bottom.
Maybe a bit of stage nerves. Wadid feeling a lot more confident. Comes back with a full health bar. Knows Mikyx can't be quite as confident as he gets a little bit more health, a little more tanky items under his belt. Jankos there as well makes it pretty easy for them to get aggressive. Level 6 for both junglers could be a big catalyst for action. Hard to take down a Galio. Looks like where Jankos is going to put his attention regardless. Talked about the jungle mid synergy. So far, Jankos has been absolutely everywhere, though. So it hasn't really been about supporting any one lane in particular. Instead, just making sure that his lanes can get through the early game safely against the almost unchecked aggression of Misfits.
Now there's no teleport on Wunder, but it is coming up very soon, and they know that Alphari cannot join. We didn't see him use the smite for that much, other than a bit of a help with Maxlore in terms of the early clear. So now he's just reverted back to what we would typically see from the Vladimir up in the top, but it does give G2 an opportunity to try and make a bot side play. They were trying to set up for it and make that sort of move. Instead, though, they don't feel confident given the setup and positioning of the enemy bot lane of Misfits.
As we approach the 9-minute mark, gold just about dead even. Decent advantage for Misfits and Hansama on the bottom side. The mid lane pretty well in the favor of PerkZ. Top lane quite even. And junglers about the same on CS. Another pause does come out here. It looks like it's coming from the G2 side. But it's interesting now, the Hansama AD carry build especially surprised me because I feel like it was universally accepted from what we had seen in international leagues that you want stopwatch, you want free boots. You want it every game just about regardless of who you are. But he's priding himself on that early aggression. The sad news is, if you're on the side of Misfits, it hasn't amounted to much yet, and I'm wondering how well this is actually going to snowball later in the game because stopwatch leads to some pretty clutch plays in critical situations, and is this domination secondary actually going to work out for him?
So I think the important thing to remember is the main thing about overheal in lane is it is very valuable in terms of the laning phase. It gives you a lot of valuable sustain. The additional movement speed that you get helps a lot in just disengaging from the aggression of the enemy. But at the same time, later on into the game, aside from that small movement speed boost, overheal doesn't offer a huge amount, the fleet footwork does not offer a huge amount of value. Obviously the sustain is great, but when you compare it to the damage, which is ideally what you want from the AD carry, press the attack is incredibly strong. So in terms of these mid to late game fights, I'm looking at Hansama to be actually one of the bigger damage dealers, and I think that he can do a lot as the game progresses.
If my information is right on the runes, it looks like he's actually taking Presence of Mind. If you don't remember this, this is the Toxic Kassadin rune that gives him unlimited mana every time he gets a kill or levels up and he gets to ult you 8 million times. Not quite sure how effective it is on Xayah, though. Maybe just looking to unleash as much damage as possible in a fight. Not going to go for an Essence Reaver, we'd have to assume with a rune like that. I mean, it's hard for me to say. Maybe he has been running out of mana in those clutch teamfight scenarios, but it's definitely not going to provide as much damage as an alternative.
Well, we'll have to see how things progress. Right now, we're going to have a quick look back at how that first blood broke down once again. PerkZ currently experiencing some FPS issues, so we're on the ball of fixing those as quickly as we can. So let's take another look at this. Again, Wadid, his positioning, not ideal. You shouldn't be that far forward. And to look at the positioning of Maxlore. Again, we want to watch this because is it just a slight misclick? He may have been aiming for Hjärnan and relying on Sencux to get the kill onto Wadid. That could have been the plan, and instead he just slightly misses the Q. I can give him the benefit of the doubt for that, but still landing that Q is crucial in order for this dive to succeed. And I feel like the Misfits, their execution, just a little bit off the mark of what they wanted. But if they had successfully gotten 2 kills here and been able to get away without losing any members, that's the ideal start that Misfits want to make happen.
Yeah, first game, you can expect a little bit of jitters coming back on the big stage. It has been a while. Players locked in scrims, a little more comfortable from home for sure, but now the pressure is on. Can't afford to make small mistakes, but like you said, it's not the end of the world. Still plenty of time for them to come into this. We know Sejuani will scale better, but both teams are pretty well equipped as we move later into the game. Now the question is, who's going to make the first big play? Who's going to take advantage of the lane pressure that they've gathered, the CS lead that they've managed to build for themselves to make something happen? Lee Sin and Sejuani, both with ultimate, can go anywhere as necessary. Don't expect a whole lot from Vladimir quite yet, however, but he has finished the Frost Queen's claim. He may be able to run down a target if left alone.
So now looking at some of the other itemizations that have been completed, or are starting to build towards rather. Hansama has now finished that BF sword. Looks like Hjärnan going towards the Rage Blade build. I know we've been having a lot of discussions in the office about the value of Rage Blade and Infinity Edge and these heavy crit builds. And in extended fights, that Rage Blade has a lot of value. But in terms of short burst, often the crit build can offer way more immediate damage. And when you look at this lineup for Misfits, it is rather squishy. Yes, there's a decent amount of HP on the Vladimir, but still, how many autos are you really going to get off in this lineup when there's so much mobility and really they're going to be putting a lot of pressure onto these backline members?
Is a big question. We'll also give that nice mid-game power spike as well. A lot of those on-hit effects. Don't need the scaling synergy of crit to be as effective. But we're going to see if this is a decision that pays off in the end. Hansama's first item not entirely clear. He just has the BF sword thus far. And top lane, well, it's not the classic tank fight, but basically the same thing as Vladimir remains incredibly difficult to kill, and Cho'Gath lacks any real way to chase him down at this point in the game.
Exactly that. So early on, Vladimir typically quite good at punishing tanks, but the thing about Cho'Gath is he also has his own built-in sustain. He has a lot of wave clear, and his mana costs are not that high, so usually he can outpush the Vladimir early on, and as you can see, he's already been able to successfully build up a pretty healthy CS advantage just by constantly forcing Alphari underneath the turret. So I think the pick was pretty smart from Wunder, and it's doing him a lot of favors so far in the early laning phase.
Yeah, working out well, working toward the Abyssal Mask. Should be pretty easy for him to survive. Might not be as easy for his teammates moving forward, but Cho'Gath absolutely lethal as you move later and later in the game. For now, though, Sencux locked up. 3 stacks 4 means the stun will connect. Maxlore is on the way in, though, so they're just going to have to back off. Sencux, good patience, not having to burn a single summoner in that exchange, but PerkZ now absolutely in control of the lane. He's going to get that free back.
And while the rhyme is still ever present in the memories of many people for PerkZ's Ryze, it is actually one of his best performing mid laners. We did see the side boot earlier on that talked about his recent win record, and so far he's having a great game on the champion. The changes to runes mean that it's actually much easier to play as well yourself, because you don't need to build those weird mana rune page setup with the weird masteries. You can just go towards what looks like the inspiration tree, build a bit of sorcery in there too, and you have a lot of flexibility in changing how you want to play your laning phase, and later on, building that teleport, which is currently...
And of course, you get the wonderful, arguably broken interaction of Ryze ulti with Stopwatch.
Very true.
Where you can save anyone and anything from a gank, because the only way to stop Ryze from teleporting is to CC Ryze, and when he's golden, doesn't matter if you CC his friends, they get out too. So, see how PerkZ wants to use that escape. Nice to have a get out of jail free card in the early game.
Now, I'm looking at these item builds once again because I noticed the double Abyssal Mask. Now, it makes sense on these two champions. They synergize very nicely with the items. However, you're also looking at the composition of Misfits and you think, oh, okay, there's actually a decent amount of AP damage coming out from this roster, but with the exception of Xayah and Elise. And you're like, okay, I get it makes sense. But when you look at the other side, there's actually a heavy magic damage comp coming from G2. Ryze, Cho'Gath, and Sejuani all mainly dealing AP, and with the Rage Blade on hit build, Hjärnan's going to be doing a lot of AP damage too, so I feel like that G2 could hamstring themselves depending on how they choose to.
Hey, it's a good time to be a Galio.
Exactly
Absolutely.
that.
Now, however, as Maxlore heads to the bottom lane, I want to take a chance to look at the supports, because both Wadid and Mikyx are both huge, huge playmakers. But the thing that kind of always strikes me as different is Mikyx was never the guy who made crazy plays in lane, outside of when he played Scion support that one time.
And Camille.
Yes, true. Also the Camille Ziggs bot lane. But he has been a guy known to roam mid consistently with Sencux as his mid laner. But we're not really seeing that as much from him this game. He's much more lane focused, and it's kind of a big shift in the playstyle he used to bring.
One of the big things for Mikyx was his ability to move around the map as well, but his focus is on the bottom lane, as we see into the play.
Now coming in, looking for the engage. Rakan going to get it back, kicking it back to the Galio, but no one is going to get hit up. Stopwatch goes in. Sencux looking for the taunt, going to hit multiple members. Mikyx trying to make his way out. Flash tries to get to safety. PerkZ happy to bring that one up. It is still the 1-for-1 in the end.
Everybody ends up down into the bottom lane. The stopwatch is coming into effect as both teams walk away with only a single kill. Misfits investing heavily into trying to snowball the bottom half of the map. We talked about this in the draft, Drakos, where we were like, this is the lane that Misfits are likely trying to play around, and G2 have recognized that and are constantly answering this early aggression that Misfits are constantly trying to exert.
Yeah, and we can see it's actually starting to work out for them well. CS lead just continues to grow for PerkZ in the mid lane. He is more than comfortable up against Sencux, happy to take this matchup. Meanwhile, Wunder on the top side of the map also doing very well against the Vladimir. So while they are just going even over and over again, G2 are actually the ones who are grinding out an advantage here, and this is big because when we look at it, once again, this team kind of reliant on a Wombo comp on the side of Misfits, and you can see when it doesn't work, it really doesn't work.
Now this time Maxlore's able to properly set up the dive. However, again, Jankos is in position to answer. Great kick into the charm. However, a very quick stopwatch comes in to buy enough time to allow them to get the turnaround onto Mikyx, who ends up being on the wrong side of the turret. So unfortunately for Misfits, once again, a dive doesn't quite go the way they wanted. Yes, they walk away with a 1-for-1, but they need to be snowballing these bigger advantages if they want to try and get ahead enough before these big team fights.
And you just have to assume that that's not the intended result, right? They're looking for 2-for-1s, they're looking to get a tower off the back of it, they're looking to open up the map and the game with this composition that, you know, Galio wants to be able to ult into fights like this, but it's just not working. The Ryze, the Tahm Kench, it's so easy for them to deny these kind of engages, and you have to wonder if Misfits are starting to regret giving away picks like the Tahm Kench.
Well, there's still plenty of the game left to go. It looks like that first tower will go in favor of Misfits, so they'll be able to close that gold gap, even with G2 in a slight lead. I believe a lot of that is coming from the farm difference, given that Sencux has spent a lot of time trying to roam bot, and Alphari, early laning phase, has been a bit of a struggle.
Good patience. Jankos isn't that close to bottom lane. They have a lot of potential burst damage here if they want to go in, but they have to wait for the Tahm Kench to burn Devour. Not going to happen. Jankos is close enough, and they spot him out, so they're not going to take the risk to all in on the bottom side. Now Misfits back off. May have to give up their own tower as well. Maxlore's there to defend, but with 3 members strong on the bottom side for G2, they're going to be in a bit of a tough spot.
Ocean Drake on the board. Didn't even notice that Misfits had in fact taken the Mountain Drake earlier on, likely after the dive that happened towards the bottom side of G2, so the second Drake of the game available. Right now, G2 investing a lot of vision towards that side of the map as PerkZ has his eyes set on this turret, so I imagine Misfits happy to take this trade as Alphari once again gets forced away from the tower.
Yeah, and Wunder, absolutely not someone you want to mess with. It's just, you're not going to kill him. If you are, it's going to take far, far, far too long, and if he silences you at the right time, you're not going to have any options for counterplay, but Misfits striking back with the Drake of their own. Hjärnan and Wadid waiting in the wings, but Maxlore will smite for the secure. 2 dragons over to the side of Misfits, but it's costing them a bit as they're about 2k gold down 16 minutes into the game.
And I want to use this as a quick opportunity to remind viewers at home that the format has changed from best of 3 to best of 1. This will decide who ends up taking home the game and contribute a lot towards the later season, but it is obviously very early on. But that slight change means that these single games do matter a lot, and you can see that both teams showing a lot of patience, showing a lot of respect, but you would imagine that the time is starting to tick for Misfits. Things are starting to look a little scary as the game progresses into its mid-game stage.
And of course, they still have the Vladimir, they still have the Xayah, a lot of late-game damage potential, but it is going to be so hard to get through a Cho'Gath, to get through a Sejuani in the late game, and yes, Xayah can protect herself to a certain degree, but once CC lands, takes out one of these carries, very easy for G2 to clean up a fight, because Cho'Gath, beautifully designed champion, is both a tank and a massive damage threat in the late game.
You've also got to run the risk of Baron as well. Remember the power that Cho'Gath has around that objective. G2, they just group up around that area. They send Cho'Gath off onto a side lane, or even the Ryze off to a side lane, and they say, okay, come fight us, or we're going to take this objective and we're going to take it quickly. And then they literally force Misfits into a lose-lose situation, which is why the onus is on them to try and make these early game plays. And while they have been proactive, we've seen them try and play towards the strategy that they had in place with their draft. G2 have constantly found the answer.
And we wondered what kind of G2 we would see coming into the split. If we would see the return to the original G2, Trick and PerkZ, mid lane jungle synergy, carry it home every single game. Instead, we're still seeing a very controlled G2. Slow and steady wins the race, taking just each objective that they can. And now with the free Rift Herald to back them up, you see a 2k gold lead, probably going to turn into 3k. Rift Herald usually guaranteeing a follow-up tower.
Everything looking very solid. I gotta be honest, both teams looking very strong from what we've seen so far, and their ability to play towards their win conditions. As G2 now setting up the Rift Herald towards the mid lane as the rest group up towards top to try and get themselves a bit of a tower back.
There you go. Not quite 3k, but starting to build. Sencux gonna 1v1 the Rift Herald. Not the most thrilling Gargoyle versus Void Creature, but we'll stop from taking another tower. We'll stop from pushing down the lane. He's going to try to regain pressure, but the bot lane rather has now been reassigned to the mid lane. G2 want to keep these towers falling. PerkZ now sent down to the bottom side of the map, and I think he can be pretty confident that no one is going to be able to take him down, although we'll have to see how Alphari feels about that.
Every teleport is up, but G2 looking to take the final outer tower. Misfits feel kind of limited. You can see both Hansama and Mikyx just hanging around the river, not really sure where to go. They've now decided to group up mid, maybe play towards that mid tower, but G2 already a step ahead. Hjärnan and Wadid in place to answer this push, and they're the ones with control over the vast majority of the map right now.
And a lot of people were expecting an explosive rematch. Well, there comes a short initiation there. Alt traded for alt. Not explosive, Vedius. Slow and steady, calculated moves coming in from G2, and right now they are just outplaying the side of Misfits. Maxlore wanted to have an early game impact, didn't really. Trading 1-for-1 back and forth, and now G2 comfortably in the driver's seat. Alphari forced into this tower, not in a good spot to respond to this Ryze. You see the Abyssal Mask coming out, and that means that Pretty difficult for Alphari to get any kind of damage in up against PerkZ.
And look at how defensive Alphari is playing right now. He is not confident that he can win a trade out against PerkZ. He's also paranoid about the lack of vision that he has, especially when you look at all the blue wards that are sitting in the bottom half of Misfits jungle. So much control is spent around the bottom side of the map to give PerkZ the safety and confidence that he can play this far up. And right now, G2, they have all 3 lanes pushing. They have so much control over the map. Now they're making a TP play bot.
Down to the bottom side, Sencux could be in trouble. Needs to make his way out, but it looks like G2 just want the tower. Not going to commit to anything else. But meanwhile, Misfits are not getting anything in return, so that's pure advantage to G2 as they just continue to snowball this gold lead.
Excellent map movements coming out from G2. The way they're utilizing their lanes right now is fantastic. Having all 3 lanes pushing, Misfits spread thin. They take advantage of the Tahm Kench ultimate to quickly move from one lane to another, and they secure themselves their 4th tower of the game. You're right, Drakos, this isn't bloody. This isn't high octane. G2 just answered the aggression from Misfits, and now they're playing the G2 game.
This is a tough spot to be if you're Misfits. They're playing that shotgun composition, right? They've got 1 shot. They need to find a way to land everything they possibly can on every member of G2 to hope to win a fight. They have enough AoE damage that they can, in theory, win this out. But it's hard. PerkZ still has to get out of jail free card. He didn't even use the stopwatch. He's just gone straight for Xayah's. That's how dominant G2 have been. And if they try to commit resources to taking down PerkZ in the side lane, he gets out free. G2 gets something else somewhere on the map. And you're just caught between a rock and a hard place now. If you're Misfits, however you can see, 70 CS lead for PerkZ.
That's actually 274 farm at 22 minutes. That's pretty nuts. That is insanely efficient farming, especially considering he's made 2 TP plays bot as well. PerkZ is playing excellently right now. He has swapped over to the Ghost, playing more towards now the mid and late game fights where he's going to want those second summoner spells. Especially with the Baron now becoming a big objective for both these teams to play around. G2 are going to be the main ones having control and the setup. And Misfits, really they're going to look to either try and find a pick or maybe turn the Baron against G2. But again, this team fight comp of G2 looking very strong.
Mikyx going to find the engage though. Galio looking for the follow-up. Wadid's going to make his way out. Not going to save the team. They're finding the disengage. Maxlore has to leap in to try to make the safety. Jankos ult is going to connect on the backside. Sencux landing the taunt on 2. Hjärnan could be in trouble. Hansama moving forward, looking to get some damage down. Maxlore going to kick back. That's 1, that's 2 for the AD carry on the side of Misfits. And they're firing back in this game. PerkZ golden. He's going to get out for free, but the team lost so much.
Misfits finally find a successful fight. They get the 2 for 0. G2, they get caught unaware. The TP from Wunder was so late. If he had joined the fight, perhaps they could have swung it in their favor, but G2 could not keep Hjärnan alive, and now the Baron being silenced.
Vedius, if they get this Baron, they're right back to even. The advantage that G2 has been building is going to start to fade. Alphari moving forward. Mikyx is fearless. He's once again on the front line. Cleanses out. Hansama, the main damage dealer, and Sencux to the flank. PerkZ has to flash to safety. Wunder just going to knock down, though. He's happy to take a bite out of that jungler. And now both sides are backing off. G2 weren't looking for the fight one, but they might now because PerkZ does so much damage. Wunder with the flash forward. That's a golden Cho'Gath. League of stopwatches, but Mickey knows the timing, and it is enough to get the 1-for-1 back. Now pulling backwards, Sencux once again with the 3-man taunt. That's the eulogy, though, baby. G2 bringing it back.
This front line is just too strong from G2, with Jankos, Wunder, and PerkZ. With one of the main damage dealers dead for G2, they're still able to win a 3 versus 5. Excellent team fighting from G2. Misfits pivot off the Baron. This was the correct call from them. They needed to take either Cho'Gath, or ideally both Cho'Gath and the jungler out of the equation, but they failed to do so. So here, you can see, jump onto PerkZ immediately. Mikyx gets chunked out of the fight because Hansama and Sencux can't get close enough. Now PerkZ just sitting on the back line, while Jankos and Wunder just soak everything up, and they're just slowly chipping away as PerkZ is positioning in a way to consistently get damage out. And you think they're finally going to turn things into Misfits' favor, but the stopwatch buys enough time for Wadid and Hjärnan to respawn, TP back into the fight, and then have the full strength of the G2 roster.
And we have to praise PerkZ and Jankos during that fight. Their positioning was so good in what looked like a losing situation. The flash out at the right time. You can see Sencux so frustrated. He almost had that 3-man taunt. PerkZ flashes to safety, and he plays perfectly on the back line. Hansama in danger of getting 2-shot that time around. It's a difficult spot to be. G2 not confident enough to take the Baron off the back of that, but they will get a Mountain Drake. Even up 1-1 on the mountains. 4K gold lead still.
And it just shows you the power that Wunder brings into these fights. When G2 lost that initial fight, it was because it was effectively a 5 versus 4, and Misfits only really had to worry about PerkZ. And as long as he wasn't that big of a threat, as long as they kept him busy, the rest of the members could just focus on killing Hjärnan. And with him dead, then the fights become a lot easier. But the moment Wunder's in the fray, he does damage. He's a frontline. He too had a stopwatch to just buy more time for his team. And G2 just were able to swing things back in their favor. And now you'd think that, oh, the game's returned to even because the kills are 5 and 5. No, the gold and the map is still heavily in favor of G2. And their next goal is likely to play around this barrier.
You mentioned it earlier, and we should mention it again. Feast for the Cho'Gath. Big difference maker here, though. You can see most of the damage coming out on the G2 side is coming in from PerkZ. Opposite side for Alphari. He has been playing a tank top lane matchup, so that number is going to look a little bit bigger just for top laners in general. But still, Vladimir, huge damage threat in these fights. Someone we have to keep our eyes on.
PerkZ now level 16 on the Ryze. He's had a fantastic game so far. Looking to get revenge on Sencux after the last time the two met. And Misfits mainly just trying to control these sideways right now. You can see Sencux sent up to the top lane, mainly trying to push that one back out. Alphari getting a bit of push, and then they'll look to push out the mid lane and then reclaim a bit of vision around back.
And to be fair, PerkZ is absolutely crushing this matchup. That's the flame threshold. And, I mean, that's 26 minutes, 340 CS. Guys, do you want to know who the carry on G2 is? I think you might just look at the CS numbers. Everything is being funneled into this guy.
This is why he is considered the best mid laner in Europe. Like, he has a lot of hype. Even though G2 didn't perform well at Worlds, PerkZ was one of the really star performers on that team, and it's exciting to see this revamped roster, the players, the differences that G2 had, because so many questions were around them, how would it play out? And it feels like this is still a very clean, controlled G2. They understand their win conditions, they have talented individuals, and so far, it does feel like that they're doing a good job of keeping Misfits under control.
And G2 have to be feeling good about this right now. PerkZ, a player that the organization is committed to for multiple years now. Definitely paying off. The roster rebuilt around him, and he is showing up here first game. No nerves, no hesitation, it looks like. Making confident moves across the map. Intent to just keep pressuring in on this side lane.
Now, we still have to keep our eyes on Hjärnan, because we talked about how in the early game, that would be the lane the Misfits want to play around, want to try and snowball. And to be fair, he is 4-0-1 right now. He has completed 3 of his core items, investing very early in a Lord Dominic's regard to help him get through some of these tanky members. So he can still play a big role, and you're looking at how he and PerkZ will influence these later stages of the fights.
Definitely carries to keep your eye on. Alphari and Wunder too, as top laners, seeing what influence that they will have. Way more damage coming out from the Vlad overall. Wunder provides so much CC, so much disruption to shut down anything that Misfits want to bring to the table. And if you're Mikyx, you got to be careful. You can't go in when that silence is up. You can't go in right onto that Cho'Gath. Everything could get canceled and you could get devoured, because that is not a tanky Rakan by any means. It's about getting in and getting out. So it will be difficult for both sides to play these team fights effectively. And despite the lead that G2 have built, you still have that wombo combo. You still have that perfect shot coming in on the side of Misfits if they can find it.
There's a decent amount of peel for Hjärnan too. It's going to be very much about how these fights play out and the positioning of PerkZ. Hjärnan, he has gone for the Rage Blade, Blade of the Ruin King build, so a slight deviation from what we've been seeing over in the LCK, where they've gone for more of an on-hit, static shiv, wit's end kind of itemization. Instead, he's a little bit more well-rounded now. He realized there's a lot of HP on the other side from the Vladimir, from the Galio. He wants to make sure that he has that extra bit of percentage health damage to make sure that he's still doing damage.
Yeah, Maxlore attempted to start this Baron, but the hit is definitely warded. Don't think that they have vision on it. G2 are going to have perfect knowledge. Wunder has TP. Maybe they're just hoping to get the TP out. If they get this low enough, though, they'll be able to take it. Can't really contest against the Cho'Gath. Mikyx does burn the Clint, is looking for the engage back. Galio is going to connect onto 3. Swallowed up so Wadid can spin out PerkZ and take him to safety, but PerkZ just gets hunted up immediately and taken down. No! He's going to get the escape.
Oh my God!
Right there! Alphari's right there! They're moving in against him! Sencux is a fiend in this fight, and he's going to find one. Maxlore looking for the cleanup. Hjärnan with the outplay. What is this fight?
So many amazing plays, and it is G2 that actually take the team fight win. Hjärnan trying to chase after Wunder, but wow, what a team fight from both these teams. Fantastic performance. That was great to watch.
Yeah, that was... It's good to be back. Hansama, absolutely a threat that G2 are going to have to respect, and a lot of people would look at Mikyx's scoreline right now, see 0-3-7. Don't hold that against him. This man has been making some insane engages. The follow-up is there. The synergy between him and Sencux, you can see it here.
You'll notice here, Mikyx uses the cleanse because he actually changed his ignite to the cleanse, allowing him to break free from the Ryze prison. He gets eaten up by Wadid, but then spits straight out into Sencux, and you think, oh, that's it, he's gonna die. But no, he has the Zhonya's, he has the ulti to very clutch get out, but in the end, he ends up dropping. And meanwhile, the Vladimir on the flank, you're sitting there thinking, okay, he's holding off two of the members, he's keeping them busy, he's drawing their attention. But because he drops and Hjärnan gets that kill, G2 actually end up swinging the fight in their favor, and now both teams back towards the Baron.
At the point in the game, both teams scaled up, both teams ready to fight, all about that Baron dance. That means another fight is on the horizon. Who's actually going to get the setup, though? A lot of this about finding the right way to get vision down, to get pressure in your lanes before you can take an uncontested objective. G2 have the edge, they get a bit of vision in the pit.
31 minutes into the game, Mikyx in a bit of danger, but he will be able to dash out to safety towards Hansama. Talks a lot about how G2 want to be the ones setting up for this Baron, and they have started it. There is no vision on the side of Misfits. Vladimir does have the TP, though.
Jankos is taking the blast cone, 3K and dropping. Almost nothing that they can do. Oh my God! The follow-up! The engage, they've already got the Baron. PerkZ goes golden, he goes away, but that is a walk of shame, baby. G2 looking for the re-engage, looking to get back, but the cleanse once again plays clutch for Mikyx. Sencux is trapped in the pit. That's going to be his tomb. That's going to be his grave, but Misfits still walk away with the Baron.
That was sick from Maxlore. He had no vision of the pit. He closed the gap as quickly as possible. He used the ward jump, he used the Q. He didn't even have the extra execute damage. He just uses the smite, and he's able to take it away from both a Cho'Gath and the Sejuani smite. Yes, Misfits, they're gonna lose a tower, and they could potentially lose more. So G2 end up, yes, they win the fight, but they end up losing the Baron, and Misfits, they can use this to stall out the game a little longer.
But because Maxlore and Sencux died, because the fight plays against them, G2 actually take the immediate edge. Gold still will help out in the favor of Misfits, but it's now about what they can do with this Baron. G2 gonna get another Mountain Drake, they can get that one for free. But with the Baron buff, they may now be forced on the defensive, forced to play under their towers a little bit. Misfits have the freedom to group up around this Baron buff, take some objectives back of their own. You can see it's 5 towers to 1. It's not going to be that way for much longer.
I gotta say, this swap to cleanse from Mikyx, doing him so many favors right now. Every time he tries to initiate a fight, PerkZ tries to root him up, instant cleanse, instant engage. Really smart adaptation coming out from the support of Misfits, and it's working out wonders. Give a bit of inspiration for you players at home. So let's have a look at this steal. Maxlore using the Q to get out of the wall. Again, no vision, and is able to smite steal away. And at this point, ideally, they just want to get out. But Sencux, he doesn't have the flash anymore. He unfortunately walks into the pit rather than towards his teammates. But they walk away with the Baron. Misfits lose the tower. My word, Maxlore, yes, you messed up early game, but that was a redemption if I've ever seen it.
Absolutely, has to hurt for Wunder.
What a great first game, return, 2018 EU LCS, and we've had such a great game so far.
It's pretty calm for the early game, but it's definitely started to pick up. They're going to find the engage, moving forward. Hansama is low, getting collapsed on by multiple members. He is like, oh, Wunder! Stone Blade Feast! Haven't seen that one in a while. He's going to get taken down. Maxlore's running for his life, but there's no chance. Wunder's cleaning up the fight. The top lane Cho'Gath is just such a monster.
Excellent collapse from G2, and the chase isn't over yet.
Oh, Alphari's going to run for his life. Rooted up, but still pooled. Knockup not quite going to connect. No chance, though. G2 clean up.
Mikyx, the only survivor of what was a clean fight from G2. Hansama was stuck between a rock and a giant man-eating monster. And unfortunately for him, the man-eating monster was closer. Great flash, use of the stone play, instant execute. Even with the Baron on Mikyx, I don't know if it's going to be enough to stall, and this is likely an inhibitor going in favor of G2.
It was such good positioning from G2, Vedius. I want to see it again, because how there was nowhere for Hansama to go. How he was doomed the second he walked into that jungle. That was some solid team play coming in on the side of G2. Now they grab their inhibitor. The first very large advantage of the game, backed up by their massive gold lead. If this is anything like the old G2, it should be that clean closeout we've come to know. But I can't imagine Misfits are going to be content with that.
Well, their composition is getting harder and harder to play, and you saw how Hansama, he is the big damage dealer. He's doing his best to survive, but if Misfits are the ones setting up in the those choke point kind of areas. They don't give the freedom for Hansam to move. Let's have a look-see. So Misfits just clearing out vision in the enemy jungle, and then Jankos just chooses to force a fight, and then immediately with the righteous glory from Wunder, they just run up through mid lane and go for the collapse. Smart decision-making there from G2, knowing that this was a great opportunity for them to fight. And Misfits, I feel like that they didn't really respect the engage power that G2 had.
And this is the confidence you like to see in a roster that is newly formed, because there's a Galio, there's a Vladimir waiting to come to that fight. If you do not kill Hansama, if you do not kill someone before they join, that fight could turn against you instantly. G2, the confidence there to just pull the trigger. Jankos, exactly what G2 fans wanted to see from him.
That was a lot of damage coming out from Jankos. These late game fights really allowing him to strut his stuff to 0-10 right now in this game. And both these teams, they have shown some impressive stuff in this game. This is exactly how you want to start off the EU LCS. And right now, you would imagine that it is G2's game to lose. We talked a lot about how G2 have the better scaling composition, how once we hit the 20-minute mark, it was G2 controlling the majority of the map, but we've seen a lot of great things from Misfits in the Baron steal, the positioning from Hansama, the flanking from Alphari. Let's see if they can use that creativity once again to find another successful fight against G2.
Mikyx, sidestep. Just getting a little cheeky, moving forward, looking for that engage, looking to start something up. His team's favor. Ryze on the top side, gonna be tough for Sencux to answer that. Doesn't really have the wave clear. No AP in the build. Little MR should help out. The Ryze will just be able to pressure down. No Baron, but G2 might not need it. 10k gold lead should be more than enough, and we're approaching the double flame horizon for PerkZ. We're on a first statement game for G2. Well, this is starting to look like one.
God, that feels bad. Misfits just playing the defense right now. Maxlore, if he can get a good kickoff onto Hjärnan, that might not even be enough because of Wadid. Now Sencux, winning out on this 1v1.
Just starting to turn this one back. So PerkZ may have gotten caught up under tower. Hard to match the sustained damage, though. A lot of shield's going to come in from the overload, but Sencux actually holding his own here is pretty big for Misfits. One less point when they're bleeding out currently.
I feel like G2 right now just waiting for the Baron and the Elder Drake to respawn. Big objectives that can force Misfits out of their base and into a situation where G2 can once again find a successful fight. But those have also been those opportunities where Misfits have found those small picks, have been creative with their engages. Pressure still on Misfits right now to find that other window, and the priority for them is going to be reclaiming a bit of control over their jungle. You can see a lot of the wards now being spread out through their half of the map, so they can spot G2 if they try and look for these picks, if they look for these plays. And it's very much just about having that semblance of control rather than being forced to just hide into your base.
Getting what they can for now, but it's still tough. Mikyx constantly having to battle dance his way out. Those ruptures from Wunder, and Cho'Gath basically unkillable. And
full build on Wunder and PerkZ at 38 minutes into the game.
And this is the solo queue nightmare for Hansama. Cho'Gath, Sejuani on the enemy team.
Yep. Randuin's picked up for Jankos as well. Gonna make Hansama's life even more difficult. G2 are grouping up in the jungle, and this was the control that we were just talking about. G2 want to deny it as much as possible. Force Misfits into taking these risks as Sencux taking that.
3 stacks, 4. Chain CC is there. Mikyx can't look for the counter engage. Sencux has already taken a lot of damage. Hjärnan will be there as well. Has to flash out to safety. Decent advantage coming through. Wunder with the ghost is going to burn it out. Alphari forces it. Mikyx, playing with fire there. PerkZ just going to port him right into the pit. Not going to quite get all of them.
Here we go. Can Maxlore do it again? Zero vision. TP flank coming in.
This is it. We talked about this. Is the shotgun. One shot. They need to find the kill here. Baron already down. G2 with advantage. Misfits running straight to the Elder Dragon.
They could not close the gap. But look, while Misfits go to the Elder Dragon, G2's eyes are on the base. They have a minion wave up in the top lane. They have the Baron buff. And Misfits, I think they're going to get caught with their pants down.
Sencux is backing now. 3 members still on the Elder Dragon. They're going to be able to burn it down. They're going to have 3 stacks. Decent amount of damage may turn the fight, but they're going to lose an inhibitor here. G2 can just back away. G2 have no reason to stay after this inhibitor. Misfits have no way to start a fight. Clean win in the end coming out for G2 here. Absolutely positive trade in their favor.
Oh yeah. Misfits recognize that, you know what, we can't take the gamble. We don't want to. Mikyx, though, has to be careful.
Hope the team can stay together for the Misfits fans. Sencux in trouble here, walks back, manages to taunt two. Hansama uncontested on the backside, dishing out a little bit of damage, but Sencux is going to drop. That's massive. 4v5, not what Misfits want whatsoever. Alphari flashing to safety, but lead in G2 right to the exposed inhibitor.
G2, they do not want to slow down. They feel strong, they feel ready, they have the Baron buff, and they're just going to face tank this final inhibitor. All they need is minion waves to finally close out this game 1 of the 2018 EU LCS.
Third inhibitor going to drop. So often the death sentence if the 10k gold lead isn't enough. Finally connects a rupture onto Mikyx, but G2 not going to get greedy. One member down, they don't want to push it. They don't have the creep waves. They're just going to back off, come back once all those super minions to force their way inside the Misfits base.
G2, the second half of this game has been very clean from them. After the Baron was stolen, you'd think, oh, maybe Misfits can stall, maybe this is the comeback. But G2, they did not give them that opportunity. They've just stranglehold, or they put a stranglehold rather, onto Misfits and have slowly started to bleed them out. It's been a bit of a long game. It's been full of action, but largely the control seems to still be there from the side of G2.
Vedius, I'm surprised. Everything I heard, everything I expected based on how old G2 functioned, people thought it was all Sven and Mithy leading the team to victory. Looks like PerkZ, a much bigger component of that. Looks like G2 has retained its former identity, and this kind of dominance is something you have to be scared of if you're a European team. It's something Misfits are scared of right now, this controlled play style. You've seen Misfits come back from clutch scenarios, but PerkZ is on that side lane. I don't even think Alphari wants this fight. Moving in on Wunder, slowly chipping him down, but PerkZ is just going to push in a wave on the top side. Misfits have to respond. They're running down the mid lane.
PerkZ will end the game.
Question mark ping coming in from G2. Not sure what Misfits are doing.
Wadid.
Tahm Kench is here as well. Move it in.
Is this the game?
Sencux going forward. I think this is it, Vedius. Style points with the quick escape. Sencux still going to try to find the taunt. That's the lockup. G2, have they overstayed in this fight? It's a little bit split here as Maxlore is on the backside. Final fight could decide everything. Hansama is so incredibly low, but he does back off. He is healing up. Maxlore lands the multi-man kick. Alphari going to need to find the re-engage, but he has no ultimate available. Goes golden. Has a brief moment of pause, but gets immediately knocked up and taken out. That's the killing spree for Jankos. That's the cleanup for G2, and it's going to be their first win in the spring season.
Great game and performance from G2 there. You can see the happy faces of the newly formed G2 squad. PerkZ's hand-picked players come in looking good.
I mean, there were a few moments there where you're like, this is it. This is the moment Misfits has the fight. But in those scenarios, G2 never went worse than even. Massively dominating start for the team. Has to feel good. Now, it's too soon to make sweeping statements, but this is a team that already looks stronger than many expected.
And that's what makes this so exciting, because there's so many rosters, you don't quite know yet the strength of so many other teams. And it's important to recognize that here, for Misfits, remember how long during the summer regular season it took them to get to a point where they looked strong. It was playoffs where they really kicked in. Whereas in game 1, with 2 new players, and remember how Ignat and Paraviva were a large core of that group, already challenging G2, already picking a bit of an innovative composition, one that required a bit of a stopwatch, but also one that their plan, they played to their plan in the beginning, unfortunately couldn't quite execute upon.
You gotta see Carlos up there, Ocelot, made good on his promise. You can check Twitter for more details. A little too gruesome, but he did promise an agonizing defeat for Misfits at the hand of G2. Now see Misfits doing their best to recover. Hussein focused. Next game, all that matters in his eyes, but the wound's still fresh for that team, and G2 have to be feeling good.
Yeah. It's a great way to start off your split, get a win on the board. We are back now in the best of 1 format. So G2, currently best team in Europe. Without a doubt, cannot question it.
Big sweeping statements, folks.
That's our jam.
That's all we need. Best team in Europe, 1 game. Well, they look good.
They did look good. And it was a great game, man. The steals, the fights, so many great things to see. We saw a lot of innovation too. Press the attack rather than the overheal build on Hansama. We saw Mikyx changing up a lot of his summoner spells. Things like the cleanse worked wonderfully. The Vlad Smite, maybe need to do a little bit more research on the rationale behind that.
I mean, could go back and then come back to lane. I mean, ultimately, if it helps Maxlore accelerate that pace, could have been good.
More to explore as we progress.
Absolutely. A lot of creativity available, especially in that tree. But of course, it's time for player of the game. And this year's voting for player of the game, it's a little different. You guys are going to decide the winner at home. Now, our analysts have narrowed it down to 3 different players, Wunder, Jankos, and PerkZ. You can head over to @LOL Esports and vote in the poll for your favorite. We'll give you the results after the break. Now, keep in mind that is on Twitter. @LOL Esports is the place. You can see it in the tweet. You can vote there yourself. Vedius.
Vote.
Who'd you vote for?
I think I'd vote for PerkZ. I think that on his debut, his Ryze was spectacular. He had a lot of awesome clutch escapes. His farming was immaculate. His positioning was great. And I think overall, he was a really big carry on that team. But you can make a fair argument for Jankos and Wunder too.
Jankos body blocks some stuff. Wunder pushed Stone Plate and Feast in a team fight. That's pretty clutch. All right, well, the reigning champions G2 got off to a great start against Misfits. After the break, we're going to hear what PerkZ thinks about that win before H2K and Vitality take to the stage.
I see what tomorrow brings.
Into the engage, Rakan going to get it back, kicking it back to the Galio. No one is going to get hit up. Stopwatch goes in. Sencux looking for the taunt, going to hit multiple members. Mikyx trying to make his way out. Flash tries to get to safety, but is going to connect on the backside. Sencux landing the taunt on 2. Hjärnan could be in trouble. Hansama moving forward, looking to get some damage down. Maxlore going to kick back. That's 1, that's 2 for the AD carry on the side of Misfits. And now PerkZ taking the safety, but PerkZ just gets taunted up immediately. And take it down. No, he's going to get the escape. Oh my God! Right there. Alphari's right there. They're moving in and gets him. Sencux is a fiend in this fight. Jankos is taking the blast cone, 3K and dropping. Almost nothing that they can do. Oh my God! The follow-up, the engage, they've already got the Baron. PerkZ goes gold, he goes away, but that is a walk of shame, baby. It's the cleanup for G2, and it's going to be their first win in the spring season.